S.O.S. from Surburbia is a collection of stories organized together into a book. I will be interviewing Pam Wilson today on her book. This is my mom. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Jess. Thanks for having me today.
Sure. Alright, first question. Why did you title this book S.O.S. from Surburbia?
Well, as you know, I've been writing an article every month for St. Louis Moms and Dads. It's a magazine here in St. Louis, and now it's online. And when I first thought about talking about our lives in suburbia, the thing that came to me was SOS. Please help me. Distress. Someone come and save me. And so that was the idea that struck. And so I took that idea to the book. And I never ever thought that the book would be titled anything else but SOS from Suburbia.
Wow. Alright, so the second one. When did you start writing?
Well, I've always written. I wrote when I was a little girl. I wrote when I was in high school. I wrote a lot when I was in high school, but none of it was very good. And so about 10 years ago, I got injured, and I couldn't exercise anymore. And you know, exercise keeps me sane. Right. So somebody said, well, why don't you do something you've always wanted to do? So I started writing. I started writing about our family, and it just took off. I was really lucky.
Cool. All right. Why did you decide to write a book?
Well, I've been writing these articles every month about our family for the past 9 years, and it seemed like everybody was writing a book. I know that seems like a terrible answer, but everybody was writing a book. Tina Fey was writing a book. Everybody in the whole world was writing a book. So I thought, well, maybe I could put together. Sorry, everything's going on. Maybe I could put all of my articles together into a book and tell one story from beginning to end. And here in St. Louis, there were a lot of people doing that as well, so I had a lot of support. I had a lot of questions about doing it, but I'm glad I did it, and it is indeed a book.
Cool. Alright, how old are some of these pieces that are in the book?
The pieces range, that's a really good question. The pieces range from the original piece, Life Lessons from the Princess Game, when you were 3 and a half,
wow,
to recent. So I tried to find pieces, again, that told the story over the last 9 years. So I started writing when you were 3 and a half, and Joe was about 5 and a half or 6. So I wanted to tell the story from when the time you guys were very young until the present day.
Cool. Why did you decide to put articles in the book about your children, family, and friends?
Because my children, family, and friends are my life. And I couldn't talk about my life without my children, family, and friends. But I will tell you, I'm very careful about what I write in the magazine and in the book. And there was a couple of things that were taken out because I didn't want it to say something about you or Joe that you weren't comfortable with.
Alright. How did you choose which articles got to go in the book?
Well, I sat down and I looked at everything I had written, and I divided it up into categories. And in the very beginning, I must have had like 80 essays, and it was crazy. And I knew I couldn't have that many. So then I started skinning them down to the ones that I thought would be part of the overall story. And as you know, I did forget one of the most important stories called Granola Girl, which was written about you, and that should have definitely been in the book, so it'll be in volume 2.
Oh, so there will be a volume 2.
If only to print that story.
Okay. Alright, how are you able to capture the moment and then take other parts of the story and add them in?
When something happens that I know will make a good story, I remember it. And something happens, I think about all of the pieces around it. Who else is there? What we can learn from it, where we're going to take that. And as I sit down to write, the initial idea sort of expands itself to include all sorts of other things. Sometimes, as you all know, I need to narrow it down because it's all over the place. But other times it's just that story told. So a lot of times, like what you all do, I write it and it has to be edited a couple of times. I always keep the original version because I think I can always use that for something. But oftentimes what you're reading is the 5th or 6th or 7th version of the story.
Okay. How were you so honest about how you felt during some of these moments and events that you wrote about?
Well, from the very beginning, I told myself that I was going to tell the truth no matter what, and I was going to be honest, and it was going to be my truth and how I saw it and what was happening, not only to me, but to our family, to our friends, but I was going to only tell the truth. I wasn't going to embellish, I wasn't going to exaggerate, and I've always told the truth. And I think that people respond to the truth because they can feel it and they know it, even if it's a sad truth or a disappointing truth or if it reflects not exactly positive on me. As you well know, I wrote a story about apologizing to a friend, and it was not a nice version of myself. But through the story, I got to become a better person. So that's why I always feel it's okay as long as I'm honest in my writing.
That's a nice one. How did you make the article and the Oscar goes to a life lesson? How did you change the sad moment to a happy moment but still stay honest?
Well, the story and the Oscar goes to is indeed about you and your experiences in the drama department. And even while it was happening, I knew I would have to write about it. I knew I would have to put that in writing somehow because it was an amazing life lesson to watch you go from being very, very disappointed and then within a few months working really, really hard and being really quite satisfied with yourself. So I knew that the life lesson in there was we don't always get what we want, but if you work really hard, sometimes you get what you want. And I knew that that was an important story to put out there because what I talk about in the story is that kids today get every single thing they want. And it was, even though it was very harmful, it was very hurtful for you when you didn't get that part, you came out of it and you were okay. And I think you were okay because of the support you had at home. And I think that was important to put in the story as well.
Philosophy. Okay, and finally, how were you able to write most of these articles and know your family and friends were going to end up reading them?
You mean in the magazine every month or in the book?
Well, both.
Well, the magazine, since I've been writing for the magazine for 9 years, everybody I knew was getting the magazine. And when it appears online, I'm shameless, and I send it to everybody I know. Because I'm very excited to always see my work in print. With the book, I didn't tell very many people I was writing a book until it was in its very end stages. And as you all know, we had a book celebration party, and almost everyone we knew came, and they were all very excited to read the book. I think people are sort of curious, mostly because I put the stuff out there and I talk about things that maybe people are thinking, but they don't always talk about. And of course, I always tell everybody that I'm really Carrie Bradshaw in another life. So,
Great. Thank you for coming today.
thanks for having me.